Hey Fly Tires, welcome back. My name is Matt, thanks for stopping by the channel. Now I've been having a lot of fun with this Great Smoky Mountain series lately, and I'm going to pick that back up tonight with a pattern you might recognize. If you came here looking to watch somebody tie a Royal Wulff, well, stick around because this is pretty much the exact same thing. This is the Carolina Wulff, as in Western North Carolina, Great Smoky Mountains, Carolina Wulff. The only real difference is the yellow part of the body. Now this is not a terribly old variant. It came to the Smoky Mountains in the 1970s. It's done very well there. It's in several Southern Appalachian Great Smoky Mountain books. It's not terribly difficult to tie. It does have a split calf-tail wing, which might take a little bit of practice, but I think most beginners will be able to handle this one. Now I think you're gonna like it. Let's get started. So there it is in the vise. This is a size 12, 1X long dry fly hook. You could probably tie it on a 2X long just as well. Might be a little tough on a standard length hook. And I am stepping down my thread. This is a 12/0. You can tie it on an 8 or 6, certainly. But it's a dry fly, and if I can get away with a thinner thread, I'm going to. So just put a small base down. Leave your thread hanging about 1/3 back, maybe a fourth. I think Charlie Craven said it's 75% mark. Now the first thing we're going to do is tie on our wing. White kiptail. Now I got a lot of stray feathers in mine, but take a bunch, a clump of it. It's at least twice as much as you think you're going to need, and I'll show you why in just a second. Okay, see that's a big old bunch right there. But what you're going to do, you'll grab it by the close to the end and then pull out, and you'll pull out a lot of short hairs. See that? I pulled out, do that a couple of times. And now I just thinned it by half. I'm going to pull out those real long ones. And now I'm going to put this in my hair stacker. The fattest hair stacker you've got, because these crinkly hairs are not, they don't stack that easily. So it'll take a good bit of stacking. Okay, now I will open it up with my tips pointing forward. It'll minimize having to swap hands at least once. So that's not perfect, but that might be about as good as I'm going to get this stacked. Now what you want to do is measure these fibers, these hairs, about a hook length, a hook shank length. I've got my thumb at the hook at the distance I want. I'm going to put 2 wraps in, not too tight. Keep it on top of the hook if you can. Now I'm putting a couple of wraps behind it, just working my way back, tighter as I go. That's tighter, tighter, tighter. Maybe 6 or 7 wraps, getting it really good and tight. If you're not careful, when you pull these up, you could end up just pulling that whole bunch out. So what you'll want to do, don't lift straight up at a 90 degree, maybe a 45 degree angle. Put your scissors in here parallel to the hook and then snip it off like that. Now if you're lucky, you'll get a little bit of a taper. So let's just try and bind this in right here. Okay, we've got a little bit of a taper there. Now take your thread back to the bend. We're going to tie in our tail. And the tail of this guy, deer hair. Just some standard deer hair. Natural color, not dyed. Not a real big clump. A fair-sized clump though. I mean, this is a Smoky Mountain fly, and I think everything's bigger in North Carolina. Isn't that the saying? So that is not stacked. You could probably do it just like that, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in my stacker for just a second. Okay, let's pull that out. Got them all stacked, but one crazy one right there. We'll just pull that guy out with our fingers. So there we go, our big North Carolina fat tail. About a hook gap in length. So I'm going to catch it in right here. Now it's deer hair. It'll flare on you if you're not too careful. So I got about 3 securing wraps right there. I'm going to take some medium wraps back. Now you could lift it up and put a wrap underneath if you want. I'm not going to worry about it. I think this will hold. So I'm working my thread back up. And this next trick is grab all of this and do almost exactly the opposite that we did with that calf tail. Find your point, maybe at a 45-degree angle, put your scissors in here, try to get them parallel to the hook, and cut it off like that. I missed a couple, but we can take care of those. Now if we're lucky, when we bind this in, our body will be fairly uniform and fairly flat. It's fairly flat. I'm happy enough with that. Now what you want to do after you get your thread back up to the wing post, just come back here and go under and lift it up and build your dam up front. Now this 12/0 thin thread, it's going to take a bit to build this up. Okay, now if you've got it sticking pretty much perpendicular, what you want to do is split it as evenly as possible. You could run your bodkin through there or just do it with your fingers like I'm doing right there. Now we'll do about 3 X's through here, or figure 8s, whatever you want to call them. There's 1. See that? I've got them propped apart. There's 2. And there's the 3rd one. Now what you can also do, Charlie Craven did it, Tom Rosenbauer mentioned it, just put a couple of wraps around each of those if you want them to look like a post. I usually don't, but I'll show you what I'm talking about right here. Just 2 or 3 wraps. Well, that one didn't stay, but it's probably why I don't usually do that, because it's a pain in the butt. And now we can do a couple on this side. See that? That makes it just a little bit more distinct. But now's the time to go ahead. If you got any crazy fibers right here, they're not going to get better with time. So just go ahead and snip them out. Okay. I'm happy enough with that. Now let's take our thread back, where we're going to tie in the back peacock herl for the back part of the body. Now I'm taking 3 strands of fairly thin stuff. I snipped off the first inch or so, the really brittle stuff. So I'm just going to catch that in and take my thread back up to where I'm going to end this part of the body. Now I'll give this a spin. Not too many times, just enough to get a little bit of a rope. See that? Now let's do about 3 or 4 wraps for this part of the body. Watch the point of your hook. Okay, now catch this off. Some people will just bury this segment, then tie in the middle part of the body, then carry on wrapping that peacock herl. I think it's easier just to go ahead and cut it off. We can use that same piece, but I think it's just a little bit easier to get it out of your way before you're tying your floss. Now, this is the Carolina Wulff, not the Tennessee one. Tennessee one would be tying chartreuse green in right here. This is the North Carolina side of the Smoky Mountains, so we're tying in yellow. So catch that in, pull it taut. What I'm doing here, now I'm going to leave my thread up front, and as I wrap this floss, I'm going to wrap it down and back. I might even do that twice, depending on how it looks and how thick I want this mid body to be. Okay, a couple of wraps to secure this. Now I'm going to take that same peacock herl I just finished wrapping. My ends are still pretty even, so I'm going to catch this in right back here. I'm going to do the same thing. Just give this a quick little spin. Probably 3 wraps right here. Now you might want to take that first one back depending on how much floss you put. I'm going to go back just a little bit. I don't want my floss body to be too wide. So I think that was 3 wraps right there. I'm going to go ahead and secure it with 2. Snip off this herl. Now let's tie in our brown hackle. Coachman brown, grizzly brown, whatever brown you got, dry fly hackle. Now I'm going to do 2. I've stripped off, you know, a good bit of bare stem there. I'm going to catch it in behind the wing posts. Leave a little bit of bare stem to help me start that wrap. And then I'm going to secure it on up front. And I will go in here and snip these off before I start wrapping them. Okay, smooth that out just a touch there. I'm going to wrap both these at the same time. Maybe 3. I like to do 3 or 4 behind it, but I don't think I left enough room with this one. My wing post should probably be a little bit closer to the eye if I'm going to get 4 wraps behind it. So I'm going to just do 3 and then probably 3 up front. And I think that is bushy enough. So I'm going to take 2 securing wraps right here. And I'm going to grab this, all of this with my fingers here and just reach in and snip that. Doing it that way, it might minimize how many stray fibers I have pointing forward and helps with the cleanup. So I'm going to pinch these in the back, get all of that I can with my fingers, and then try to flatten this up, give me room for the whip finish. Got a little bit of brown sticking up right there, but we can live with that. And this is 12/0 thread, so I'm not really in any danger of building up too big of a head here. And I've got plenty of room for this whip finish. Now, if I haven't mentioned it yet, and I'm going to try to remember to in the intro, if you want to see a master tying a Royal Wulff, which is pretty much the exact same thing, look at Charlie Craven's video of this. That is about one of the best looking flies, best looking Royal Wulffs I think I've ever seen. He does a masterful job. It's a long video, but he walks through every step, and that thing is beautiful. But anyway, here's my version, Carolina Wulff. Not too difficult to tie. It takes a little bit of time, but it's pretty fun and very effective pattern. So that's all, folks. I really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.